Hi guys, it's Toasty Gaming, and I'm here to bring you my tier list for the best archers in Bannerlord. I decided to add the horse archers onto this list as well, because there was only a few units in each category, and the videos would have been pretty short otherwise. But before we get into the list, I would really appreciate it if you guys dropped a like and subscribed for more content. Without further ado, let's get right into it, starting off with the trash tier. The Stygian Veteran Bowman has the worst bow of any of the tier 5 archers, and he also has 2 stacks of barbed arrows, which add 1 pierce damage. Not only does he have the worst bow, he also has only 140 skill, which is about 10 to 20 less than many of the other tier 5 archers. Its lower skill and weak bow means that he's going to have much less range and damage, as well as accuracy, than the other bowmen here, making him pretty much useless in my opinion. Thankfully, that's the only trash tier bow unit, and we can move up to below average, starting with the Imperial Palatine Guard. Now this guy has a solid bow, as well as having a nice 160 bow skill. However, my problem with this guy is the 1 stack of bodkin arrows. This means after he's done shooting those only 24 shots, he will have to run into melee with just a single sword. This makes him much weaker than the crossbow units in my opinion, because both of them have a similar amount of arrows, but the crossbow bolts actually deal more damage, and they also are equipped with a shield to be able to be more effective in melee combat when they run out. Coming up next in the below average tier is the Khuzait Marksman. This guy has 2 stacks of arrows, which seems to be an upgrade over the Palatine Guard. However, he also has a weaker bow, the step recurve bow, and only 130 skill, which means he's going to have similar problems to the veteran bowman, causing lower accuracy, damage, and range. Coming up next, we have the Aserai Master Archer, who is the first unit I'm going to place in the average tier. He is equipped with the same step recurve bow that the Khuzait Marksman had. However, he has 2 stacks of piercing arrows, which add an additional 4 damage, as well as having 160 bow skill to offset the weaker bow. I like this unit because he has 2 stacks of very high damage arrows, as well as high bow skill, making him a pretty solid archer. Coming up next in the average tier, we have the Aserai Mameluke Heavy Cavalry. This is a very unique unit because he has the step warbow, which is strong and an upgrade over the Master Archer. However, he only has 1 stack of piercing arrows, but they gave him a sword and shield. This makes him a strange combination ranged and melee cavalry unit. I have mixed feelings about this guy because I think the increased utility of having the shield is pretty nice, but I prefer to have 2 stacks of arrows on my mounted cavalry because they tend to be much less accurate as they're shooting while moving, and it's nice to have 2 stacks of arrows so they won't run out, especially in those larger battles. The final unit I'm going to place in the average tier is the Imperial Bucellarii. This guy has the step warbow, the same as the Aserai Mameluke Heavy Cavalry, while also having 2 stacks of barbed arrows. I prefer to have the 2 stacks of arrows because you can be much more free with his shots in battle compared to the Mameluke Heavy Cavalry, where you have to be a little bit more conservative with how you let your units shoot. He also has the Imperial Charger, which is the tankiest of all the horses out of the horse archers, but it's also the slowest. Now, I'm surprised to say this, but coming up as the first unit in the above average tier is the Hired Crossbow. Now, I've generally avoided mercenary units as they tend to be a weaker version of the other tier 5 units, but when you take a look at the Hired Crossbow, he actually stacks up very favorably here compared to the other units on this list. If we take a look in game, we can see that this guy is actually equipped with the same crossbow as the Valandian sharpshooter, dealing 100 pierce damage, as well as having a sword and shield, making him better in melee combat than the other archers with just a single sword. Another thing to take a notice is, this guy actually has better skills than the Valandian sharpshooter. If you take a look, he has 140 one-handed and 140 crossbow, while a sharpshooter has 130 in one-handed and crossbow with the same weapon. Kind of insane. Even though I did say all those great things about the hired crossbow, I still do think that the crossbowmen that the Imperials and Valandians have to offer are stronger. The Imperial crossbowmen, while having a weaker hickory crossbow that only does 93 damage, he does have much higher armor than the hired crossbowmen. This means he'll be much more tanky when trading shots with other archers, or when he does get into that hand-to-hand combat with his shields. The Imperial Sergeant Crossbowman also comes with the same melee kit as the Imperial Legionary, which means he will also spawn with those maces sometimes, which do bonus damage against high armor units. Coming up next, we have my favorite ranged unit in Bannerlord, the Valandian Sharpshooter. These guys are equipped with that bound crossbow, which does 100 damage, as well as having some upgraded bolts, which deal an additional 5 pierce damage. These guys are amazing in sieges, which is my favorite place to use them, because they can constantly refill their bolts while just sniping down the attacking armies. They're also great at holding the line at the top of a ladder because they come with those massive Pavis shields. The final unit I'm going to place in the above average tier is the Khuzait Heavy Horse Archer. I rarely use this unit because if you're going to get horse archers from the Khuzait, you might as well go with the Khan's Guard. But there are a few things about this guy which make him better than the Bucellarii in my opinion. He has a weaker step recurve bow. However, he also has 2 stacks of arrows which deal more damage than that of the Bucellarii, and also has a faster horse, which is important for horse archers in my opinion. Now it's time for the top tier archer units. Pretty much anyone with Bannerlord experience knew these 2 units would be here at the top, but let's take a quick look at each and what makes them so strong. The Khan's Guard is the best horse archer in the game, mostly because his insanely high bow skill at 260. We can see he also has 2 stacks of arrows, which I said is nice for those longer battles, especially on horse archers because they don't tend to be as accurate because they're moving. He has the step recurve bow, which isn't quite as good as the Bucellarii. However, he's also packing this glaive, which is just ridiculous to fight against. Even if you can close the distance on one of these guys and get up close, they can just one-shot your units with this glaive, especially while moving. They're very hard to fight against, and they're even strong on foot. Finally, we have what I consider to be the best ranged unit in Bannerlord, the Fiend Champion. Everybody knows these guys are just ridiculous. They're packing 260 bow skill and a woodland longbow, which gives them insane range and accuracy. These guys can snipe enemy units from basically as far as the crossbowmen. And they also have 2 sets of stacked bodkin arrows, giving them over 60 shots and an additional 3 pierce damage. And if that wasn't bad enough, they also have a strong 2-handed sword, which means they can hold their own if your units actually manage to close up on them somehow. So that concludes my list of the best archers in Bannerlord. Please tell me what you guys thought about it in the comments below. You can tell me you loved it. You can tell me I'm a noob. You can tell me which units you would have placed differently, and please like and subscribe for more content.